we'll bring him in on the fly. I want to welcome all to meeting number 8 of the House of Commons Standing Committee on Veterans Affairs. Pursuant to Standing Order 108-2 and the motion adopted by the committee on October 27, 2020, the committee is resuming its study of the impact of COVID-19 pandemic on the financial health of veterans organizations. And I'd like to welcome all of the witnesses who have taken time out of their busy days to join us today. First, from the 420 Wing, Oshawa Inc., Mike Gimblett, President, welcome. Appearing as an individual, we have Max Gaborio. Welcome to you, sir. From the Royal Canadian Air Force Association, we have Linda Brimson, Director of 427 London Wing. Welcome. From the Army, Navy, and Air Force Veterans in Canada, we have Deanna Firmwright, Dominion Secretary Treasurer, Dominion Command. Welcome to you. And from True Patriot Love Foundation, we have Mr. Nick Booth, Chief Executive Officer. So we have a very large panel here today. So we're going to get right into it. Each of you are going to have 5 minutes for opening remarks, and then we'll get into rounds of questions from the members of Parliament. My role is as the official interrupter. It tends to be what I have to do more than anything. When you're speaking or when you're answering questions, there is a timeline. If we get down to 1 minute, you will see me simply do this. Don't panic. Minute's a long time to wrap up your thoughts. You will see me do that throughout, whether it's with the questions or the opening statement. So we're going to get started with opening statements. And to kick us off today, from 420 Wing, Oshawa Inc., Mike Gimblett, President. The next 5 minutes are all yours, sir. You're just on mute there, sir. There you go.
Yeah, we'll get used to this one day.
I hope
afternoon. Good afternoon, honorable members, and thank you for the opportunity to speak to you. Our small independent club serves all veterans while leaning towards ex-Air Force. We have the heritage of our building being one of 3 remaining buildings left from the British Commonwealth Air Training Plan base in Oshawa, built in 1941 to train pilots for the war effort. We are an independent, Ontario incorporated, not-for-profit business entity whose mission is to serve our veterans and promote aviation in Canada. We also help sponsor 3 local Air Cadet squadrons financially and with the use of our building. We also support local groups that provide support to women in abusive relationships and the local soup kitchen to help the homeless. Being independent, we do not come under a central command structure, and we have no one to rely on but ourselves. Our members are 95% senior, and for the most part, we are their only social life, and we are an extension of their family. Our members gather in our club to socialize with like-minded people and enjoy the camaraderie of this. As a small not-for-profit business, we do not have access to excess funds carried over each year. Our mandate ensures that any surplus we have gets invested in the people and programs we support. We own our own building and have a lease arrangement with the City of Oshawa to lease the lands. The land, which is part of the land, which in part to our efforts is in the process of being designated a historical significant district to recognize the contribution to the war effort that we owe our freedom to. We also rely very heavily on our core group of volunteers to do much of the heavy lifting to staff the club and provide our services to our older members. Because we keep our operating expenses low, we have not qualified for any of the programs so far, such as the ACVA. Our revenues are down approximately 80%, about $60,000 so far this year. We have been locked down, closed for 3 months in the spring, and now with the latest red zone for Durham region, we are again closed for having people inside the building. We have just had to cancel 2 major rentals in December, resulting in further lost revenue. During the first part of the pandemic, our monthly expenses have been approximately $1,000 per month or $8,000. We were able to cover these expenses by utilizing our patio for outdoor service when the weather permitted and running a takeout meal program every 2 weeks staffed by our volunteers with much of the food needed to being donated. Now with the cold weather and being restricted to a maximum of 10 people inside, we have been forced to close until further notice. Our monthly expenses still continue for electricity, phone, internet, water service, and now we have the added burden of heating the building and our snow removal contract. We are anticipating that our monthly bills for the winter will now be $2,000 per month, or for the next 5 months, $10,000, doubling from the summer. And we have also just had our insurance renewal come in at $5,600 due in December. We have undertaken to continue our takeout meal program and anticipate that we can cover about half of our expenses. To survive this pandemic, we have increased our online presence to keep our members informed and together, but getting through this winter will be really tough. We have applied to the $20 million program for help with just our insurance bill. The sad thing is that we are closed, funds are limited to keeping us operating, and as such, our ability to deliver the programs that our veterans and seniors need is strained. Also, our commitment to the future of Canada through our local Air Cadet squadrons is on hold. 45 years ago, I was an Air Cadet in Oshawa, who was supported by the 420 Wing then. Air Cadets taught me leadership and citizenship that has served me well in life. Not a day goes by that I don't use lessons learned in a program supported by the 420 Wing. What we are asking for now is not a handout, but rather a helping hand to help us open through this unanticipated pandemic. For over 72 years, our club and members have given freely of our time, efforts, and funds. And to be able to continue in the future, we need help now to get us through the next short period. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. And you came in well under the 5 minutes, so I appreciate that very much. Next, appearing as an individual today, we are joined by Mr. Max Gaborio. The next 5 minutes are yours, sir.
All right. I'm not as eloquent as the previous speaker, so bear with me as I have brain damage and severe anxiety at the moment. I'm Master Corporal Gaborio, retired signal operator. I served in the Army for 13 years, and I was part of the first rotation in Afghanistan for a duration of 9 months. I was operator under General Fraser. And I'm also a first generation of electronic countermeasure driver, so jamming bombs. And I was a C9 gunner providing security. In the last 4 years, I've been advocating with issues in regards to VAC and cognitive injuries and problems and policies to be changed. It has yet to happen as my health is degrading. It's getting harder and harder to pursue that venue. My diagnosis is I've suffered from mefloquine toxicity with complex PTSD symptoms, and I'm borderline psychotic, meaning I've been living for the last 15 years in survival mode, and I'm stuck in that situation. COVID has been not as impactful on my daily living, as I don't really mingle well in society. I go out to a bare minimum. However, it has impacted my treatment, which has been now about a decade or so. of being able to, because my body does not relax on its own. I rely on chiropractors, acupuncturists, physiotherapy, and mental health counseling, which has been moved over the phone, which we both know it's not quite as impactful. My medication has not been affected as of yet, although there was some delays in the mail, but no big deal. All in all, I'll just answer the questions from the members. I think it's going to be easier that way, Chair.
Absolutely. First of all, sir, thank you very much for your service, and thank you for joining us here today. Up next, from the Royal Canadian Air Force Association, we are joined by Linda Brimson, Director, 427 London Wing, and London is my family home, so I know the London Wing quite well, and I'm very pleased to see you here. Oh, you're just on mute there, ma'am.
Yep,
there you go.
There we go now. Thanks so much. I'm just thrilled to have this time to talk about the wing. We've got a great group, about 130 members, mostly seniors. We've got a heritage building that we think is just a gem. We mix innovation and tradition in our programs and continue to educate present and future generations on the importance of Canadian history and honoring all vets. We look forward to continuing our sponsorship and hosting of 6 Air Cadet squadrons as they study and work to achieve private pilot license during a 6-week summer stay. Right now, we can't have the events that generate their funds through a 50-50 draw. We think that's an important contribution to the future of Canadian aviation. We supported the development of London Parkwood Hospital's post-traumatic stress disorder veteran support unit. Our volunteer members maintain close contact with veterans residing there. This year, 2 Quilts of Valor were presented to very deserving vets, and we had 2 great group visits out there. I'll tell you a little bit about our association and our building. It was formed in 1947. It occupies the original building on land now owned by London International Airport. It was built in 1939-1940 as an airmen's canteen. The wing building was part of Station Crumlin, site of number 3 Elementary Flying School and number 4 Air Observer School. And this was all under the British Commonwealth Air Training Plan. The wing is believed to be the last representative and still usable building of its kind in southwestern Ontario. The British Commonwealth Air Training Plan was essential to Britain's survival during World War II. It was a project of incredible scope and expense. It was bigger than building Canada's national rail system. Sadly, this history has not been taught in Canadian schools. It falls to nonprofit veteran groups and aviation organizations to share this important story. Of the Canadians trained at BC ATP bases all across Canada, we had pilots, navigators, air bombers, wireless operators, air gunners, flight engineers. Also essential were the ground crew and the technical trainees for instrument and aircraft repair. This was a most critical contribution to a Canadian contribution to the Allied war effort. Canada's 151 BC ATP schools and bases Canada-wide provided safety from enemy bombing for UK aircrew and ground force training, and quickly mobilized an incredible force of civilian and military personnel. Post-war, the wing building remained in use throughout Korean and NATO areas until purchased by 427 Wing in 1959. I'll quote our wing director and Canadian Forces veteran Chuck Hardy, who states, "We are so very proud that we have created a space for many Air Force veterans, their loved ones, and the general community to come together and socialize among such incredible local and national historical artifacts." We have been working really hard to find financial supports or alternatives to save our organization since COVID-19 forced us to shut our doors. We have resourced government programs, grants, and local initiatives. Sadly, we may be forced to declare bankruptcy. Wing members and friends of the wing have donated generously, but we're missing all the revenue from events. We've done 2 appeals. The second one was better in reaching a wider public. We've received funds through GoFundMe and Canada Helps. The Canada Helps money is constrained. We can't use that for operating expenses. We have submitted an application for the period from December 2020 to June 21 for these categories. Wages and benefits, we have 1 paid employee, our wing manager. Professional fees needed for an auditor, an archivist, an assistant for museum programming. Our insurance, very heftily invoiced at $17,281 annually. You can believe we are shopping around. Utilities continue high. Our rent to the site holder, building upkeep. We need a replacement fire alarm panel. We need replacement lighting. Materials and supplies, PPE, disposable takeaway food supplies, printing and communication for our education program, updating displays, new signage, and administrative costs. In a happier, healthier future, the wing will once again host gatherings when people can safely come together. Thank you, merci beaucoup, for your time, attention, and consideration.
Thank you very much for being here with us today. Now from the Army, Navy, and Air Force veterans in Canada, we're joined by Deanna Fimwright, Dominion Secretary, Treasurer, Dominion Command. Thank you very much. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for having me here today. We certainly appreciate the committee's concerns over the financial health of veterans associations. I'd like to give a quick background for those members that may not have an ANAVETS or an ANAF unit, as they're sometimes known, in their ridings. The Army, Navy, and Air Force Veterans in Canada, or ANAVETS for short, is the oldest veterans association in Canada. Our history can be traced back to 1840, and we were formally incorporated under a special act of Parliament in September of 1917. Today, there are approximately 13,000 members and 61 units spread across 8 provinces in the country. The effects of COVID-19 have been particularly difficult for ANAVETS and many other veterans associations. Not only did initial shutdowns lead to complete loss of revenue in the first few months of the pandemic, but the subsequent restrictions, once they could reopen, vastly restricted the main sources of revenue that our units rely on. In our original report to Veterans Affairs in early June, we were estimating that about a quarter of our units had minimal concerns regarding continued operations. Half had moderate concerns, and another quarter had serious concerns. By the beginning of September, the situation was worsening, and Dominion Command returned over $43,000 of membership dues to units in need. Additionally, many provincial commands assisted their units financially where they could, by either foregoing portions of membership dues or loaning or gifting their reserve funds to units to help pay for operational costs. Federal government support programs were initially of little help to many of our units, with approximately 40% being ineligible for the Canadian Emergency Business Account loan due to being volunteer-run operations that did not meet the payroll requirements of the program. The Emergency Community Support Fund looked promising, but it was only applicable to new or ongoing projects and not operational expenses. And not-for-profits were not eligible for regional development funding. Most units laid off staff when they closed, with only a handful keeping on 1 staff member. As units reopened, we encouraged utilization of the Canadian Emergency Wage Subsidy, but many have not rehired full staff due to decreased operating hours and revenues. In most ANAVETS units, revenues can fall into 2 broad categories. First, hall rental and catering. This year, our units had to cancel most of their hall rentals due to closure, then capacity and social distancing restrictions. The wedding season was a complete loss for the year, as were smaller celebrations and corporate events. Even now, there is uncertainty as to when this capacity will once again be allowed. These rentals were all often accompanied with large catering contracts and bar sales, all which literally disappeared. The second main revenue source of our units comes from gaming and sports leagues. Bingos, meat draws, video lottery terminals, and other provincial lottery proceeds are not only a major source of funds to our units, but they are the basis to the community support provided by our units to other veterans and local charities and programs. These too were affected by closures and restrictions, with capacities decreased by at least half. Our units are also popular facilities for sports leagues like dart, shuffleboard, and billiards. Again, restrictions have drastically reduced these leagues and their participants. In many cases, these main revenue sources can make up between 65 and 80% of a unit's overall revenue in a year, with entertainment, special events, lounge sales, and membership dues rounding out the rest, all of which have been negatively affected. And those losses have short, mid, and long-term consequences. Initial closures forced units to burn through reserve funds to continue to pay operating expenses. Then they needed to adjust operations to ensure that they had all the required protocols to reopen, such as enhanced cleaning, distance markers, physical barriers, staff and volunteer safety equipment, and sanitizing stations throughout the buildings. As mentioned before, most could not afford to reopen with the same operating hours, with the enhanced restrictions curtailing revenue-generating operations. In addition to decreased revenues, our association has also been hurt by a dramatic reduction in our volunteers. A large majority of our volunteer base comes from a demographic of retired seniors, who unfortunately are in a higher risk category for COVID-19 severity. To add salt to the wound, some operating expenses have exponentially increased. Liability insurance is increasingly difficult to even source and is coming in thousands of dollars over last year's costs, which adds additional financial pressures to all of our units. The realities of the second wave are upon us now, with units in Sherbrooke, Quebec, the Greater Toronto Area, and the province of Manitoba all being hit with secondary mandatory closures. That is why the association is so grateful for the Government of Canada's recent $1 million grant from the Veterans Organizations Emergency Support Fund to the association to assist with the operating expenses of our units across the country. This funding will be a lifeline to many units in keeping the doors open and their lights on, and to continue to provide veterans and their members the social support and camaraderie that is so vital to mental health. Although we cannot predict how much longer this pandemic may last or the long-term impact on all of our units, we do know that without this funding, many of them would have most certainly struggled to maintain our long history in serving veterans, their families, and our communities. Mr. Chairman, on behalf of President Burke and all of our members, I appreciate the dedication and effort of this committee to understand our current situation and to ensure that we can continue to give our veterans and their families a place to come together again when it's safe to do so, and to help provide the best possible service and care that they so justly deserve. Thank you.
Thank you. And up next from True Patriot Love Foundation, we have Mr. Nick Booth, Chief Executive Officer. 5 minutes, sir.
Thank you, sir. And thank you to the honourable members for inviting me to address you today. For context, True Patriot Love is Canada's leading national foundation supporting its military. We exist to help members of the Canadian Armed Forces, veterans, and their families by raising awareness of the challenges arising from service and funding much-needed programs in local communities across the country. We work closely with the Department of National Defence, Veterans Affairs Canada, and the Canadian Armed Forces leadership, and our mandate is to deliver impact across 4 key areas of focus: building stronger military families, in particular assisting the children and spouses of those who serve, supporting the physical and mental well-being of military members and veterans, enabling the rehabilitation and recovery of our wounded, and connecting veterans back into communities following their transition. We've been in operation since 2009 and have distributed over $30 million in funding across every province and impacted more than 33,000 lives, in particular assisting those more recent veterans who served in Afghanistan, Bosnia, Rwanda, and other conflicts. We also campaign on behalf of Canada's veterans and their families, advocating for their health and well-being, shedding light on the impacts of service, and funding important research into the needs and realities of the military community. As with many charitable organizations, the global health crisis has presented us with an unprecedented challenge. Since the start of the pandemic, our operations have been under significant stress due to an increased demand for our help in parallel with cancelled events and reduced donor income. By the end of Q1, we were facing a drop in revenue of 79%, and overall our year-on-year income has fallen by more than half. In response, under the direction of our board, we initiated an emergency response plan. We stopped all recruitment and froze vacant posts, so reducing our staffing by a third, and held all other variable costs. Despite this, we've been forced to dip below a 5-month operating reserve, which was established as a minimum safety level by the board. As at the end of October, the organization stood at 4.3 months forward reserve, representing a position of considerable vulnerability. As we look to the first half of 2021, with the continued restrictions on events, declining donations, and economic uncertainty, we anticipate True Patriot Love will continue to show a revenue decline of at least 50% due to the pandemic, leaving us with a projected operational shortfall of $2.9 million over the period. As an organization which exists to serve the health and well-being of the military community, these financial challenges inevitably have a direct impact on our work with Canada's veterans and the funds we have available to grant to vital community programs across the country. As a result, we are most grateful to the Veterans Organization's Emergency Support Fund grant, which has provided significant help towards the Foundation's operational costs. Without it, we would have been forced to lay off or furlough staff and restrict grants, so severely limiting our capacity to provide the veteran community with the support they need now more than ever. And we know from our outreach that veterans are struggling amidst the pandemic. Programs they have relied on for support have been cancelled, and social and geographic isolation has become a greater concern. The pandemic and the restrictions it has brought have magnified pre-existing mental and physical health conditions for those already struggling. True Patriot Love is doing what it can to serve this community. So despite our significant financial setbacks, we have stepped up to provide funding in a number of vital initiatives over the course of the pandemic period. We expedited our Bell TPL Fund mental health grants for those struggling with psychological challenges, especially during the period of social isolation. We funded online mental health services that will connect rural communities in Eastern Quebec with the Valcartier Military Family Resource Centre. This is particularly critical at a time when military families may face geographic isolation or unable to receive face-to-face support. We supported Team Rubicon in Canada as they adapted their programming to meet urgent community needs in the crisis, despite the health restrictions. Funding was given to Camp Maple Leaf to develop a free camp at home program for children from military families unable to enjoy this year's camp in person. We sponsored the SIMBA Symposium on Moral Injury, a topic that has implications for both veterans and frontline healthcare workers. And in partnership with the Vanier Institute of the Family, we're conducting the only national survey specifically aimed at understanding how the pandemic is impacting Canada's veterans and their families. True Patriot Love's key position in the sector is to provide a strong and independent role, working with the government, including Veterans Affairs Canada, to ensure the voice of our beneficiaries and program partners is heard and to direct funds and policy to areas of greatest need. If not for the Veterans Organization's Emergency Support Fund grant, our long-term viability would be uncertain, leaving a significant gap in support for the brave individuals who have served and continue to serve in Canada's uniform. Thank you once again for the grant and the opportunity to speak with you today.
Thank you very much, Mr. Booth, and thank you to all the witnesses. You all did not require me to interrupt you at any point in time for going over, so I really do appreciate that. We are going to jump into our first round of questions. This is our 6-minute round, and up first we have MP Carey for 6 minutes.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and I want to thank all the witnesses for being here today. This is such an important study, and I want to welcome Mike Gimlet from 420 Wing. Mike, if you see, I'm wearing the 420 Wing tie, and I'm very proud of Oshawa and our community and all the work that you do. At Remembrance Day, I remember talking to some veterans, and they were very appreciative of the $20 million for veterans organizations, but at the time, Many people thought it was just for the Legions, and now we see that there is some 6 million for the service clubs. But again, I heard a member mention to me that there's billions of dollars in the fraudulent CERB that was given out, and this really is not even a rounding error as much as going to veterans organizations. So there was some frustration there. I was wondering, in your opinion, these clubs are starting to close and many of them are in crisis. Do you think more clubs could have been saved if the money was sent out earlier? It's been about 8 months since the start of the pandemic.
Most definitely, clubs would not be closing or in dire financial need. If funds had been able to be accessed earlier, we did look into various programs ourselves, and because of our heavy volunteer presence, we couldn't meet the payroll requirements for the ACVA, anything like that. It wasn't really our intention to have to take on debt, but we would be willing to do it to, get through this crisis. And it's impossible for anybody to have realized last fall there that we'd be in the situation there that we're in now. And as such, in the fall, we have to look at our balance, and we're only allowed to keep carry over enough funds as a not-for-profit to see us through to get started in the new year. So obviously we doled out a lot of money to different groups in October, November, December to make sure there that we met the requirements of the Not-for-Profit Act.
Now, Mike, maybe you could explain to committee members what effect it would have locally if you actually closed. You mentioned how important it is. You are caretakers of that heritage building. My understanding, volunteers, the cadets, you support the cadets, local charities. What's unique about your clubs and the service that you provide and supply for veterans?
Well, we provide support like 427 wing and other wings and legions and that. We are an extension of our veterans and seniors families, and we're finding now our seniors and veterans, their children who are out in the community and in the workforce, are fearful of being around their parents. So they're Skyping, phone calls, everything like that with their parents, but their parents are missing out on that actual human to human physical contact. They're, sitting across the table, having a laugh, and, kind of forgetting the situation there that we're in. It's very important to everybody's mental well-being to be around other people. We have some members right now who are very fragile. We have them on a call list. We have people calling them, checking on them, kind of doing wellness checks on them, and that's so being shut down again, as we are now. It's kind of giving them a taste of what would happen if clubs like us did close.
Well, if that ever happened, it would be extremely unfortunate for Canada. Because one of the things I wanted to point out today, and maybe you could point out to members on committee and people who are watching today, how cost effective you veterans clubs actually are. You supply all these services, benefits to the community, but in a normal year, your clubs are different than the Legions, who actually are separate entities. Do you receive any federal funds, or do you receive any support from the federal government routinely?
No, we are completely self-sufficient. Like Linda said, well, we have membership dues. We have hall rentals. We do joint fundraising efforts there in support of a local D&D accredited museum. It's the Royal Ontario Regiments Museum. They like to call it there that we provide them with air support for their events and rentals. So all our funds there that we have come from us. We have no other source other than our ability to raise funds and go out there and hustle to bank a buck.
Well, the application form, my understanding, it was just last Wednesday that you guys found out about how to even apply for these funds, but the process wasn't clear. You may have to wait until December. Is that something that puts some clubs at risk?
Very, very quick answer, please.
Yes, it does there because, like I say, there we have an insurance bill coming due, and where are we going to get the money? I don't know.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir. And
you,
now
Chair.
over to MP Casey for 6 minutes, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Thanks to all of the witnesses for being here and for the work that you do. I'd like to start with ANAVET's Ms. Fimwright. I think it follows on the evidence that we just heard from Mr. Gimblett. Can you tell us a little bit about, just hold on one, okay. Can you tell us a little bit about your structure? We heard from the Legions in the last meeting. They also have a Dominion command, provincial commands, individual chapters. Sorry about that. This Yoda very much wants to participate in this. And yet we heard testimony from two groups today who are completely independent. So can you talk a bit about how I understand that you're a service organization with a multi-level of long history. I'm interested in the fact that there are independents as well. So can you talk a bit about that?
Sure.
And I'll mute my mic so that you don't get interrupted like I did.
Sure. The Army of Air Force Veterans in Canada is really structured the exact same way as the Royal Canadian Legion. So we have a national Dominion command, and then in provinces we will have provincial commands, and then locally we will have units. And although everybody is independent, the members are part of their local units, and those local units are under the jurisdiction of provincial commands, and everybody is under the jurisdiction of the Dominion command. We all do relatively separate things. There's local supports for veterans and members within the units. Provincial commands deal more with provincial governments, and in the federal level, the majority of my work is working with Veterans Affairs and advocating for better services and benefits.
So here's what I'd like to understand. We heard from Ms. Brimson and Mr. Gimblett, both of whom have heritage buildings that they're trying to maintain, both of whom have been negatively impacted, and yet they're independent. Are they able to make a pitch to you for some of that $1 million that was sent to you by the federal government in this in the most recent legislation, or does their independence preclude them from accessing that?
My understanding of the program is that they would apply directly to the Veterans Organization's Emergency Support Fund for funding for themselves. Associations like the Royal Canadian Legion and ANAVETS applied for all of our units, whereas individual units of other organizations that weren't done in that matter could apply themselves, and they have held back money to assist those organizations as well.
Okay, but in your testimony, you indicated that about 25% of your member chapters were significantly adversely affected. Is that $1 million going to help them?
all of the money that we received from the government will go to help our units, our local units. There won't be any money that's kept at the Dominion level at all. Certainly, my testimony was that in June, we had about a quarter of our units that had some serious concerns about how they would pay their bills. In September, that seemed to have gotten a lot worse, and now we're in November, and more of our units are facing closures. So certainly, I believe the need is going to be there from our units to utilize all this money in order to help them keep their doors open.
You indicated that 40% of your units were not eligible for the Canada Emergency Business Account. Can I take it from that 60% were eligible?
Yes, I would probably agree with that. I know that some units were eligible and did not apply, but certainly there's definitely a number of our units that have received that funding and have used it to help keep the doors open, their programs running.
Last question for you, Ms. Brimson. I noticed on your website that one of your major partners is the New Horizons for Seniors program. Can you tell us a bit about the relationship between your wing and the New Horizons for Seniors program?
Yes, in the past, over some years, we have received grant money from New Horizons, but nothing recently. We had to pay over $20,000 for a new roof. We weren't successful in any grants for that. We have written grant proposals because we need a vertical lift within our building so people can come from one part to access washrooms, refreshment areas. So yes, we'll use, and we are continue to source any grants. Our structure is that there is a Royal Air Force Association National Trust. We are, what would be the word, affiliated with them, but the money goes one way. We contribute to them. Anybody wishing a tax receipt has to go through them or the Canada Health site.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I have to interrupt. We're way over. Hopefully, we'll be able to come back to you and so you can finish your thought. MP Desilets.
Mr. Desilets, you have 6 minutes.
You're on mute, sir. There you go.
My apologies. I was on a new computer. I would like to say hi to all my colleagues. Mr. Gaborio, thank you very much for your service. And thank you for being there today. You are very courageous. And I am touched. I was very moved earlier. You didn't have time to finish your opening remarks earlier, so could you tell us about your release from the Army? Did you get some sort of training at the end of your service, and how did it go? Did it meet your needs, that training? I went back to school. It's been a very long time that I have spoken French. So, Mr. Gaborio, you can speak in English. There is interpretation, so you can be very comfortable. So I went back to school, to university, and I got a certificate in Audible. And I received my class 1. I worked a lot with big, heavy machinery, and I spoke with my wife, and we decided that it was the right thing to do. But it was not the case. my reintegration didn't go very well. It was a failure, actually, this transition to civilian life. I don't know the word. I think it's SVA. Well, right now I am staying home, basically. So when you left the army, did you get a training, a 3-day training to prepare you, to help you, to talk to you about programs that exist? Yes, yes. But it's been a very long time, and I don't remember very well. It's called the SCAN seminar. When you leave the army, you are responsible. So, me, I had problems with my brain. I had received a diagnosis. So it was very hard. It was very hard for me to do this transition. It was my responsibility. It was on my shoulders. I have to figure out what I would do after leaving the army. I spent 30% of my life in the army. And when I left, I was not able to connect well in society. And I have forgotten what I was talking about. My apologies. No worries, no worries. You gave me some good answers. And I've heard some of these things before. I've never worked in the army. I don't know your personal experience. But if I understand well, because I've heard that from other veterans, is that once you are released from the army, it's not necessarily the best moment in your life to learn something new regarding what you could expect. Am I right? Well, I would just like to clarify something. I found a doctor. I had to do that. I had to learn how to navigate in the health system. My wife was pregnant when I was in Edmonton, and I had to figure out how the civil health system was working there, because the military system is completely different. It's much more efficient, actually. And I was shocked to find out how things worked. So I hope I was able to answer to your question. Yes. So you have worked in the army for 13 years, if I understood correctly. So when did you get out? In 2014, in July 2014. Okay. So do you feel like you are receiving all services that you need?
Okay.
No, but I will be able to talk about that when I answer other questions later. I cannot hear him, Mr. Chair.
Also, my sound is just fine at my end.
Okay,
Mr. Chair, could Mr. Gaborio repeat his answer? I was not able to hear him. Yes, of course.
Go ahead.
I have no idea what the question was. I'm sorry. I have no short-term memory.
Non, je regardais.
No worries, no worries. I was just asking the following. In the past 6 years, were you able to receive all the services that you needed? Do the programs meet your needs? Yes and no. But once again, I will be able to tell you more about it later.
Excellent. Thank you. And just in time for her round, we have MP Blaney. You're up next for 6 minutes if you're ready to go.
I'm always ready to go, Mr. Chair.
Of course. My apologies.
But if Lindsay's still here, I'm trying to look quickly on the screen. I'm just going to let her do the first 6 minutes.
Fantastic. Go ahead.
Thank you.
Sorry, I never want to cut off Ms. Blaney. However, I did have some specific questions that I did want to ask Ms. Brimson, and I'm so glad to see you here today, Linda. I'm a proud member of Parliament for the area that represents the 427 wing. I'm also a proud member. I don't have my tie like Mr. Carey. I have a pin, however. And actually, a lot of my questions are very similar, but specifically for the 427 wing. You had talked about in your testimony the importance of the history that the 427 wing brings to London, but also the surrounding southwestern Ontario region. There are incredible benefits of just within the canteen itself and the history of the canteen. You didn't have a chance to mention Spooner Memorial Gardens or the Spirit of Flight Aviation Museum, the Secrets of Radar Museum, which I know are also key parts of the wing. I did want to, I'm so grateful I wanted to say that I'm so grateful that that's in the community. However, I'm also grateful for the community for recognizing the value and coming together for a temporary fix. However, the money that we received in those publicity ads that we were able to get out in terms of the news media are temporary. You spoke about the wing permanently closing if you don't get continual funding. So I was wondering if you could talk about the services that would be lost in addition to what you've already mentioned. I want to, hopefully you can talk about the impact to the members, a lot of whom of course are seniors, and the emotional, social, mental isolation that's caused and the problems that's caused for your members. And also just going forward, you also discussed about the operational costs versus the project-based funding that you've been specifically had to try and make ends meet with. So how important is it for the government to, in some of the upcoming funding, them consider operational funding and costs as you go forward?
That would be key if funds could be allocated that did not have the restrictions. I think we'll be able to access some of our programming money through public donations, which will probably be pretty good for the next 6 to 9 months. However, the operational costs are killing us. That's $17,000 plus insurance bill is huge. During COVID, we're proud that we have paid off a $10,000 roofing bill, but some of that was because members and executive members kicked in money themselves. We did not want to stiff a local contractor who had done a good roof in good faith. So it comes down that we're part of the community. We're proud to be part of an aviation hub. We have the Jet Aircraft Museum. We have International Test Pilot School. We have Fanshawe College, Norton Wolfe School of Aviation Technology. There's such a great aviation resource right around us within walking distance, Diamond Aircraft. So we realize there's something there to build on, but it's hard to be doing those 5-year plans when we have fires to put out. 5 senior men and myself have met every week putting out crises and deciding where we could juggle. How could we meet our commitments to be a community member? We have people who've kept in contact with our members. Sadly, we're losing members to dementia, to poor health. Many have spouses in care. That's a big concern right now. We continue our Parkwood links. As I mentioned, we have Hilda, who's great with our contacts there, getting veterans some smaller things they might need. So that continues. But all the social aspects, Friday lunches that brought in all kinds of previous pilots, all kinds of veterans, not just Air Force. We don't want to have in-person eating right now. They're too vulnerable. And with winter weather, there's just going to be harder for everybody to get there. We continue sourcing grants, but again, some of those have strings. And our National Air Force Association, that is the one that has the charitable donation, the charitable registration. So I think some other nonprofits have found themselves in that catch-22. We are nonprofit. We generate funds from events, but we're certainly not intaking great amount of funds. Yeah. We may look at business sponsorships.
I just wanted to quickly add to, and I know that Mr. Carey had mentioned it, that I know that you approached me as your member of parliament in April, and we wrote a letter to both the ministers of Veterans Affairs and Heritage asking for help to save the 427 wing. Unfortunately, we never received a response from Veterans Affairs. We just received a response from Heritage. Unfortunately, it was noted that it was far too late to apply for the programs that had been made available. But I'm concerned too that the fact that I believe that the government waited specifically until the day before Remembrance Day to announce funding that could have been used way before. So could you talk about the impacts of that and how you've had to struggle for those 8 or so months?
I'm really sorry, but that's actually well over time right now. I'm gonna have to move on. We're actually into the second round. And first up, for 5 minutes, MP Wagenthal, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and thank you to all of you for being here today. The roles that you play are crucial, and it's really unfortunate, I feel, that the government took so long to respond to what would clearly be a visible need. Our veterans are in circumstances where they're facing huge backlogs, and I want to just comment to Max's scenario. You indicated, Max, that you're suffering from methyltoxicity, PTSD, borderline psychotic injuries.
Generalized anxiety disorder as well. I forgot that one.
Oh, okay, there you go. And these are things that you say are keeping you just in survival mode. And I appreciate that you said that COVID hasn't impacted you on the isolation side. That's something that our veterans actually
But it doesn't. And
okay.
The way it doesn't is that, well, I lived in a war zone, a prison, essentially the base, for 9 months, and all my movements were controlled. It's just part of life in the Army.
Right.
So in that sense, no, it doesn't.
Okay.
Where it does, it's when it impacts my treatment.
Yes. Right, and that's where I wanted to go. I wanted to go there because our Saskatchewan Legion's director that came and talked about his service officers, he said that, I mean, your funding is important, but the first thing they go for is that treatment. You have to have your treatments. And so you talked about physio and that your body doesn't relax on its own. So how has COVID impacted your ability to get those treatments?
Throughout the winter, if we go with the first lockdown, I was unable, other than my psychologist, because it moved over the phone, which isn't great, by the way, but it's better than nothing. But I couldn't go to the chiro. I couldn't go to see my acupuncture. Those are very specific purpose treatments. Physiotherapy, I don't remember last time I went to physiotherapy. And when they reopen, I'm required to wear a mask. Well, I'm working out, as low intensity as it might be. I don't breathe like you do, and my brain controls differently. So having said that, I have abstained myself from going and get the treatment to reinforce my shoulders because I severed my shoulders in the past.
Okay.
That's how it really impacted, because my body gets tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter, and I rely more and more on medication to try to relax. And obviously, I'm using also a lot of holistic techniques that are not, part of my
Okay,
traditional
can I ask
treatment.
you,
Yeah.
Right. So you're doing what you can, Max. I just want to bring up the fact that, okay, you're not getting out to those treatments and it's impacting your health. You look good, you know what I mean? And yet, really, you're
But that's my problem,
very
is
limited
that
in
I
many
look
ways.
good. Yeah, I look good, but many guys like me look good.
Right. And so the issue for you is, I know it impacts you personally, plus your wife and your family. You say you're home right now. What is your wife's role in the midst of this? And
my wife is my caregiver. So my wife has been my caregiver ever since I met her, to be honest. Because once I got diagnosed in 2010, I met my wife in 08. I got diagnosed in Comox when I got posted there, where I was shelved because I was damaged goods for the Army. So that's the ugly truth. And COVID has impacted me in the sense that it affects my behavior in certain ways, and meaning it's very difficult for me.
So your wife plays a role in that.
Yeah.
Right. So your wife plays a role in your care.
Yeah.
For what?
Because I have no memory.
What are you advocating for? But what are you advocating for your wife?
The caregiver allowance, because it's discriminative of guys like me that have cognition injuries. Yeah.
So the thought is that because you look like you're well and you can dress yourself, you can do basic care, but it really requires her intervention for you to be able to function.
Yeah, essentially, just to save time for other members that might wonder, I can feed myself, dress myself, and bathe myself, which are the base criteria for the caregiver allowance. However, it does not, and I've been denied 3 times, I think, so far, maybe 4, I can't remember anymore. The fact that my wife has to remind me to eat. I haven't had breakfast. I realized that when I sat down in front of the camera, I totally forgot. I had other things on my mind. My living situation, it can be dicey from day to day. So I can't necessarily focus on this actual task that I need to do. So my wife reminds me to get dressed, to eat, and to get bathed.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you
so much, Max. And thank you for your patience, Chair. I appreciate that.
Not a problem. Up next, we have MP Amos for 5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Merci, Monsieur le Président. Merci à nos témoins.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chair. Thank you to our witnesses. Mr. Gaborio, thank you for testifying. Thank you for your courage. We do appreciate this. It is important for Canadians to understand the difficulties and the challenges you have to live through. And it's important for you to be here today, and I commend you for this.
To the organizations that are here today, because I want to try, for the sake of enabling the evidentiary record of this study, to take a look both backward and forward, and to just get a broader sense in the context of the support that's being provided in COVID times, what the financial trajectories are of your organizations, setting aside COVID. So I wonder if each of your organizations could give us a sense here of what kind of revenue trajectory your organizations have each been on in the past 10 years or so. Stable, the same? Have they gone down over the past 10 years? Have they gone up? And if so, by what kind of percentage? Just looking for really short answers here because I've got more follow-ups on that information. Thank you to each of you. Perhaps we can start with Mrs. Brimson.
Oh, great. Okay. Can you hear me? 427 Wing, I would say, has had decreasing membership among veterans. We are trying to get younger membership and a more diverse base. There have been some years more successful than others. We've had pretty good analysis through switching to QuickBooks in our accounting. It says we need to do 2 or 3 larger events that make money. We can't always depend on raffles and licenses. The other thing is we're interested in this aviation hub, and we're interested in forming business partnerships and working with other aviation groups, such as the Canadian Harvard Aircraft Association. We have similar members in both. Okay.
Thank you, Mrs. Brimson. And so from that, I'm taking that there is an overall decline in membership,
yes,
and an overall decline in revenues, notwithstanding COVID.
Yeah, rentals and whatnot, because our building's so unique, it has an appeal. People step back in time, but we have had to offer a different type of event. We realize that you need to spin and innovate to maintain.
Okay. Perhaps over to Mr. Gimblett.
Yes, I've been the chair for the last 2 years in our organization. Before that, I was kind of on and off the executive, but very active in the wing. 10 years ago, our membership was probably 135 people. Right now, I think we're sitting at 115. So we launched a very early and aggressive campaign to renew memberships this year, which came in very well. Quite a few members also gave us donations at the time, in addition to their memberships. So that's definitely this. All service clubs are faced with new challenges. The new generation just doesn't want to commit to anything. I can't even get my kids to tell me if they're coming for supper until they know that they don't have a better offer. Anyways, but having said that, through our community outreach and our fundraising efforts, where we're making an effort to involve the community, get them in, like Linda's building there. We were part of number 20 Elementary Air Training School of the Bruce Commonwealth Air Training Plan. We inhabit building number 10 from it. And I also recognize the historical significance of our building. And as such, we've been a driving force behind a historical conservation district encompassing the 3 remaining buildings and Airman's Park. So our fundraising efforts, we've gotten very aggressive over the last couple of years. I'd say our revenues probably increased about 7 or 8% from 2018 to 2019. Obviously, this year we're down. I think we're down 80%.
Thank you, Mr. Gimblett. I'm gonna have to interrupt you there, I'm afraid. And we'll come back hopefully in another question so you can finish your thoughts there. Up next, we have for 2.5 minutes MP Desilets. The floor is yours, sir.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a quick question for Mr. Gimblett. Could you perhaps summarize the way your organization is different from a Legion organization, for instance?
We're made up of Air Force veterans. We are We have several members. We have, I think, about 20 members of the Royal Canadian Air Force Association. We do have Legion members who also have membership with us. We are a totally independent club, building on the heritage. We were founded in 1948 by returning Air Force veterans. So we've just continued. Children of veterans have become members. We still have some remaining World War II veterans and veterans of past service in the Canadian Armed Forces.
OK, diriez-vous que vous êtes complémentaire?
Would you say that you are complementary to, I mean, you are a complement to the Legion, to those people in the Legion?
With us and with the Legion. We have some of those people. We also have the Ontario Regiment. Their officers' mess just closed, and they've been told it will not reopen. So people who were members at the officers' mess have come to us now and become members with us. So we're a very inclusive club. We're open to everybody, and we want to maintain and preserve our heritage.
OK. Vous disiez bien tout à l'heure qu'il n'y avait...
Earlier on, you were saying that there was no program that you could get yourself into to get any subsidies, some of the COVID subsidies.
Amount of volunteer that we did not meet the payroll requirements for the ACVA, and every other program we've looked at, nothing applies to us.
Thank you, sir. And now over for 2.5 minutes, MP Blaney, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Brimson, I'm going to come back to you. Lindsay's asked me to follow up to make sure that you get an opportunity to answer the question that she asked, basically about how would 427 Wing benefit more effectively during this timeline if the resources had been available sooner?
Part of our mandate is to continue educating. We know we have this social aspect, this gathering aspect, but we're going beyond that. Lindsay referred to, we have a museum display, the Spirit of Flight Museum. We also have provided museum space to the Secrets of Radar Museum, which is unique across Canada, the equipment and the experience they offer. So there are a lot of door open type of events and touring events that haven't been able to happen. And you need a bit of funding just to stimulate, whether it's school children, whether it's handouts, whether it's video, whether to shift some of those things online. All that audio visual takes time. Yeah.
And so the next question is, what resources do you need to survive during the second wave that is now just impacting us immensely?
A recognition that the organizations that help heritage buildings survive, and something to contribute to the upkeep of that's a worthy endeavor. You can imagine keeping up a 1939 building. When we meet there, we've got the thermostat turned down and we're huddled in our coats and we put on a warm drink. So we want that building to endure. We want people to experience it beyond the veterans, but it is a monumental task. So we're reaching out to museum organizations. We're reaching out to heritage organizations. We're reaching out to RCAF. Like I say, we're trying very hard to access funds and to collaborate with our local groups and maybe even national groups to make that experience and programming. And it takes funds to have that expertise of an archivist.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you. And sorry, up next here for Oh, I just lost my spot here. Up next, we have MPC back for 5 minutes, please.
Great, thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Gabriel, I wanted to take a moment to talk to you a little bit about your experience from transitioning out of the forces. It sounds like you've been having, certainly some issues. I was reading a report in July of 2016 from the Veterans Ombudsman, and talked about that depending on the circumstances, a transitioning member can be required to print and complete 21 separate applications from the 186 forms on the Veterans website. What was your experience like as you transitioned out due to medical conditions? And it was described by the Veterans Ombudsman as a bureaucratic nightmare.
I cannot speak as when I retired because I can't remember. But it is a bureaucratic nightmare for any aspect of dealing with VA. More so, it's hard if you lose a leg, an arm, any part of your body, and to deal with that. But it's even harder when your injury is cognitive. And I recall the one thing I can recall, because I've been dealing with VA since 2008 for various injuries. When you were denied in some aspect, it was done informed verbally, and you could appeal verbally. Now I can tell you as of when it has changed, and it's been burdened with written appeals. I have one in the process that was informed, that I need to go to the second level of appeal, but it requires me to write that appeal, which is difficult for me. I've been trying to various services or available programs are endless paperwork of my life story because departments don't talk to each other. I don't qualify for the disability tax credit, but I'm close to 120% disabled. And that's a ton of paperwork. I've been attempting to apply for CPP for 5 years now, but I keep forgetting because it's such a daunting task for me. Same thing with VA. Every department makes life difficult when you're disabled. Nothing is streamlined, and everybody's trying to justify their job.
Thanks for sharing that. We've heard that sort of over and over again recently, and it's really a shame and a disservice to our veterans. For the service clubs, we heard from the Royal Canadian Legion in their committee testimony on Tuesday that if the government had acted sooner and provided certainty with funds sooner, some Legion branches would not likely have closed as they have. Did you request funds earlier from the government, and what was the government's response to those requests for funds for your organizations, if any? And any one of you can go ahead.
This is True Patriot Love. Certainly, we have been in discussion with the government since the beginning of the pandemic, when it was clear that veterans organizations and community programs across the country were going to struggle. And as we've heard from Mr. Gabriele, the veterans themselves were missing out on their programming and support. We made our first approach for a 20 million contribution from the government in the federal relief back as far as March. And have been in sort of continued dialogue with Veterans Affairs, Prime Minister's Office and the Treasury for the last 9 to 10 months. So I was certainly delighted when it eventually emerged in the speech from the throne through the Veterans Organizations Emergency Support Fund. But it did take quite a long time to work that process through, and obviously fully understanding the many other claims on federal relief during the pandemic. It certainly took much longer than would have been ideal, I think, to to get that support, which we first called for back in mid-March.
Just a few seconds left there, sir.
Any other organizations want to quickly chime in?
Well, I was going to
very brief answer, please.
Like you say, there we explored all options. The ACVA program was not available to us. Other grants and programs, most of them are for new programs. There's nothing for operating expenses. And when you do take a grant for a new program, you have to make a commitment to keep it going for 2, 3, 4, 5 years. So if you don't have the...
Thank you. Sorry. Thank you very much. Now for 5 minutes, MP Fillmore, please.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks very much to all the witnesses for sharing their time and experiences with us today. If I could, I want to say a special thank you to Master Corporal Gaborio for being here today. And although my Max, my thank you to you it feels small to me, just please know that it is profoundly sincere, and thanks for being with us today. Ms. Brimson, I was very happy to hear you mention the Canadian Harvard Aircraft Association. My father flew Harvards at 15 Wing and Moose Jaw back in the 50s, and there are a few photographs around the house and lots of stories. So thank you for bringing that back to mind. I do appreciate that. Yeah. I have the great honor of representing Halifax in the House of Commons, and as we have a significant presence of all three branches here, it wouldn't come as a surprise to any of you that the serving population and the veteran community form an everyday component of our experience here in the city. It's just part of who we are here, and so I'm deeply plugged into the challenges that are being faced. Aside from having 3 legions in this district, there are two service organizations. ANAVET's Unit 373 is in Halifax, and we have a Royal Canadian Navy Association Peregrine here as well. So as you can see, we live this every day here. And one of the things that I have come to learn from all 5 of these the 3 legions and the 2 service organizations that I visit regularly, is that financial challenges didn't just crop up because of COVID. I mean, sure, we could talk about how quickly COVID-related funds were released, but this is really a longer-term decline. The ability for organizations to draw new members, to build membership and maintain members, to continue to have the cash flow to offer the programs that are so important to veterans. All of those things have been getting more difficult over time, and as should be, I think the organizations are turning primarily to the federal government. In fact, I think you will know that it's been widely reported that about 95 of every $100 of COVID-related relief in Canada has flowed from the federal government, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I was encouraged, Ms. Brimson, when you were talking about some of the other things that you're looking at, and that's really where I hope to go with hearing from the witnesses today. We're all talking about pivoting and finding new sources of revenues to adapt to COVID. I'm just wondering if Ms. Brimson, you would go further, or if any of the other organizations would go a little further about efforts undertaken to find other sources of income, other programs that could be helpful to meeting the tremendous need that we know exists. And if anybody has anything to add there, I'd ask you to go ahead.
Yeah, I can speak to that. I think it's essential if an organization can't grow and change, see new needs, respond to them, innovate. We need to appeal to different generations. Our education programs have to be presented in different ways with audiovisual equipment, different than just the speaker in a classroom. Charlie Fox, a well-known, decorated Distinguished Flying Cross and Bar. He was a member for 20 years at our wing. He never glorified war, but because he had lived experience, he could go into a school. Soon, there won't be those members who had Second War or flying experience. There'll be some from Korea, NATO, Cold War era, but it won't be the same. So yes, in a way, it will be survival of the fittest, that the groups that don't innovate, that don't really, we want to keep that social warmness, but we better be offering a very good service to the community and the wider community. And hence this idea of an aviation hub in London. But even our business neighbors are hurting through this COVID. It's a very tough time to be approaching a manufacturing aviation partner right now and saying, look, we're wondering how we can support each other. But the collaboration is a key thing that we will be doing.
You have about 10 seconds, sir.
Can I just have one extra point about, I think there's a missing connection between the wider Canadian public and veterans now. And I think one of the key things that we can all do, and maybe it's a sector-wide initiative, is to remind the Canadian public of the 750,000 people who have served in Canada's uniform, 101,000 still serving now. And I don't think the public know that. And also with the serving members, which obviously so in your constituencies, the riding is particularly important, mobilizing the corporate sector to look at hiring transitioning veterans is one of the best ways of helping their long-term financial well-being and mental health.
Thank you.
But also will populate business with veterans who will then be friendly later on.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And just before we move on, I do have to say my ears perked up when I heard the name Charlie Fox. It's my wife's great uncle. So so I was I'll have to let her know this evening that he was mentioned in committee. She'll get a kick out of that. So
he's big with the wing and chaw.
He's big. Period.
Everywhere.
Yes, absolutely. Before we move on to the third round, I think we have Mr. Gimblett has had his hand up on the participant. Oh, hello. Yes, sir. Max.
I have about 20 minutes before I have to pick my kids from school. Okay. I'm 3 hours earlier in the day, so
fair enough.
Unfortunately,
fair enough.
I have that.
We will enjoy your company until you have to leave, and completely understand when you do. So I just wanted to mention I have Mr. Gimblett's hand up in the participant section. I wasn't sure if he was having any technical issues or if there was a reason for that.
Oh, I was just going to comment on how over the last 3 years we've become very innovative. Okay. We've sourced new sources of revenue, and we've actually been growing our revenues and keeping our membership the same.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that. And moving on to the third round, for 5 minutes, MP Broussard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to go back to the Army, Navy, and Air Force veterans in Canada. When we had the Legion in the other day, Dominion Command, they were talking about the challenges. And I think you touched on this being mostly a volunteer-based organization. But one of the other challenges that came up was the inability of the veterans, the Army, Navy, and Air Force vets to access government programs because in some cases they had not filed the proper taxes, the T2s, which is for charitable taxes. So I'm just wondering, have you heard or experienced any of that across the country with some of the branches?
Yes, certainly very similar to the Royal Canadian Legion. Our units are based on a charter that we provide them, and we are incorporated federally. In some different provinces, they may be a part of their provincial societies or what have you. But really, when they ask for what is your incorporation number, we only have one, and that is as the one that is owned by the Dominion Command. So there certainly have been struggles. I haven't heard the particular T2 issue, but I have heard other units that struggled when applying for the wage subsidy programs and just sort of trying to get online, even at my national office, trying to get on my CRA account is difficult for us. So okay. I certainly understand those issues.
Okay, thank you for that. Mr. Booth, True Patriot Love, tremendous organization doing tremendous work. We heard from Vets Canada the other day, that gap from March until the funding was announced the difficulties within that organization and their ability to provide services to their veterans. They talked about having to lay off members of their staff and just a general diminishment in their ability to provide services to veterans. So I'm just wondering if you can speak of your experience to that, and how will the $1.5 million that has been allocated to the TPL Foundation be utilized going forward?
Sure. Well, thank you for the question. We certainly, as with many veteran organizations, struggled in those first months, as I mentioned in my testimony. We were eligible to receive some benefit from the wage subsidy and the rent subsidy, and I would certainly commend the government for making not-for-profit organizations able to apply for that. So that certainly allowed us to keep our staff on and not furlough or make them redundant, which in turn not only helped the wider economy, but allowed us to continue with our work. However, as I mentioned, our revenue is already down 52% year on year. So the 1.5 million, to your question, will give us certainty during the coming months. What we know in the veteran sector, and I'm sure the other witnesses would agree, the month of November is the one time of the year when people really think about veterans. We typically get 40% of our money in about a 5-week period. And so what the 1.5 will do is allow us to get through hopefully the remaining months until the economic conditions improve. Just one point of clarification for the committee that came up much earlier, and it was a question I think to Ms. Vimright. The conditions around the VOE-SF grant do not allow onward granting. They're only for operational relief for your own organization. So other organizations would not be allowed to bid for that money. It's to allow the recipients themselves to maintain their work during the coming months. So just a point of clarity for the committee, but it will certainly allow us to keep our staff on during the winter and to make sure we can push on, hopefully, in maintaining our work, as we emerge.
So the injection of these programs then and the money associated with them, if we are to continue down the same path of the pandemic, and these programs were to stop, what impact would that have on your ability to function?
Oh, most certainly we would be faced with laying staff off and potentially not being able to pay our rent, which would put us in legal jeopardy with our landlord, and we have a lease without break. So, if we were unable to pay that, we would certainly be facing some form of either very difficult conversation and or litigation. So the programs have given us the ability to navigate that, and without them, as I mentioned in my testimony, just before the start of November, fell down to 4.2 months forward operating reserve, which means that we wouldn't exist by Easter. And so, having been a 10-year organization and Canada's largest national foundation supporting the military, to go out of business by the spring would certainly be a significant consequence for the veterans that we serve.
Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to be with us today. Thank you.
Thank you. For 5 minutes, MP Lalonde, please.
Thank you very much. Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I say thank you to all of you for taking time away from your very busy life and being with us on this very important study. And Monsieur Gaborio, c'était vraiment...
Mr. Gaborio, I am very happy to meet you, and I was happy to hear your story. Thank you for sharing it with us today. I know that you will have to leave soon to go pick up your kids at school, so at least I wanted to thank you for your service. Thank you very much. Thank you.
I don't know if the committee knows, but I just wanted to note that today is the first day of Canada's 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. And I have a question. With this in mind, I just wanted to ask Mr. Booth, and I know you made some reference about some of the hardship that you're encountering as a foundation. So I wanted to speak to you about to the financial health of any of your programs to help the military men and women who have been affected by sexual violence during their service.
Thank you, Mana. It's a very, very good question. We do actually maintain a dedicated fund for women veterans. It's called the Captain Nicola Goddard Fund. As members may know, Captain Goddard was the first woman ever killed in the Canadian Armed Forces in Afghanistan. And in her honor, we've worked with the Goddard family over the last 2 to 3 years to build a dedicated program for women and both veterans and still serving. So we certainly do provide support for those who've suffered sexual violence whilst in the military. And we indeed have funded some women-only mental health community programs through some of our partners. The Veterans Transition Network, for example, we've funded to do very specific dedicated women's programming. So if there are women or indeed men who suffered in the context of sexual violence during their service, we would certainly be very keen to ensure that they receive the services. And I think the 16 days of activism to make sure what remains a relatively taboo subject, despite the Chief of Defence Staff's commitment to raising it. And I think women is a priority for the Canadian Armed Forces, and I would commend them for that. But through the Goddard Fund, we're very committed to making sure that women, both serving and veterans, receive all the help they can get as they move on from the experiences they may have suffered.
Well, thank you very much for that, and I appreciate this reply. Mr. Gimblett, I was very taken by the fact that 95% of your members are seniors. And before I enter politics, actually, I work with seniors in the retirement home, where I had the great privilege of meeting our veterans, men and women, and also some spouse of our military. And I have some questions, and it's just clarification for me, because I know you made reference to aspect of payroll not meeting certain criteria and CBA. And in my view, in my mind, they're two different programs. So CBA, and I understand that it is a loan through your financial institutions that you would need to apply. I was just wondering, is that what you were referring?
Well, yes. Because our payroll is so low, we don't meet the minimum requirement.
Well, the $20,000.
Yeah, and because so much of our work is done by volunteers. We do have an HST number. If we could access CBA just for the factor that we have an HST number and we are an actual business, okay. And we report.
And maybe. I know we're all talking about COVID and right now, and I was just curious to know, actually, based on what you just made reference and the large volunteer-based approach, what's the plan for next year for you in terms of survival?
Well, we're going to continue with our, at the start of COVID, we came up with doing a takeout meal every 2 weeks. And that serves our members, and we've also expanded out into the community in that. This weekend coming up there, we have 100 meals booked already. So we're hustling any way we can, and there's very, very limited ways there that we can raise funds right now. We can't have rentals. We can't have people into our mess. So this is the only way we can do it. We've come up with new innovative ways. We've carried our expenses through the summer, but now with the heating season and that, things are looking a lot more dire. Plus, a lot of our members have made and some very significant donations there to help us.
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you for that. Thank you.
And up next, MP Desilets for 2.5 minutes, please. Oh, we just lost him. You turned your camera off, sir, but go ahead.
No.
There you go.
Oui, tout à fait. C'est mon genre.
Yes. My apologies. Hello. I have a quick question. If on February 1st we could go back to normal time, would your organizations survive?
And we'd be in a position there to support all the groups and programs there that we normally had, and probably even increase our revenues again over last year.
as unpleasant as the hardships of COVID has been, I can't help but feel grateful that we have had to think harder, think smarter, and realize where we could trim, where we need to expand. So yes, we would survive, but I think it's made us sharper on our focus and made us look at, okay, you put the fires out, but you need that 1 and 2 year plans. You need to partner with your local, national groups. So yes, we would survive, but I think we had to have a reckoning and a hard look at ourselves.
I agree. I think ANAVETS units will survive, and ANAVETS as an association will survive, but it does bring forward that bigger question that we were facing before COVID-19. We have to find a way to hand this association down to the next generation and ensure that it continues. And we haven't done a great job in that thus far. And so hopefully COVID-19 will teach us some lessons on how we're able to better connect with the next generation of veterans to ensure that it does survive.
I think the other point which may emerge from this is better collaboration in the sector. I mean, there are a lot of military charities, both large and small, and there may be ways that the sector can begin to collaborate better just from service delivery in local communities to avoid duplication, right through to more challenging ideas such as shared premises or shared purchasing. And there are various ways that everyone can take costs out of their organizations without losing their brand identity or their relationships with their supporters. So I think, and the old adage, never waste a good crisis, I think that people should be embracing this, challenging though it is, to explore new ways of communicating and new ways of collaborating, which perhaps there was no mandate or burning platform for them to do beforehand.
Thank you very much. And up next, we have MP Blaney for 2.5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Max, I know you've got to go pick up your kids, and it looks like it's a bit of a gray day and not a rainy day, so I guess that's good. I'm here in snow. But I'm just wondering, I think you outlined very clearly the challenges that you're facing, how they impact your life and the life of your family. And you talked about applying several times for the child care, or the caregiver, children school,
Yeah,
but the caregiver allowance and the responsibility that your family, not just your wife really, and we've talked about this, your whole family takes in supporting you. I'm just wondering if you could put it officially on the record here. Why is VAC saying no to you?
Because plain and simple, it's policy. I can feed myself, dress myself, and bathe myself. And for those reasons, I don't qualify for the disability tax credit either, for the exact same reasons. It discriminates for cognitive injuries, or meaning brain. So it's my 4th year that I've been advocating. I think I started with you about 3 years ago, and nothing has changed whatsoever. COVID is just making things worse for me. I'm a psychotic patient. I have to try to remain calm at all time. I'm sedated to function in a normal life. As an example, I found on my own a treatment, but it's in Victoria, which I have a driving service that can take me to it, but I have to wear a mask. I can't wear a mask for a long time because all of you look like terrorists to me. And I was wearing a scarf while on patrol doing my job. I'm not going to explain further on that because it triggers me. So that means I won't be able, even if everything goes through, I won't be able to go get the treatment I need because it triggers me, which could put the driver in jeopardy. So, I have to abstain myself from a lot of things because of it. I can wear it for a very short amount of time, which now everywhere, I think in BC, is required indoors and probably other places, which makes it very difficult for me. And on that, I'm hard of hearing, so I can't see nobody's faces to read their lips so I can function better. So I don't know if I answered your question because I'm getting lost in my head.
You answered my question. Drive safely with your children, Max.
Thank you, sir. And up next, we have MP Carey for 5 minutes, please.
Chair, I wanted to dig in a little bit more about
MP Carey, if you could just lower your mic, I think we'll have a better chance of hearing you there.
One of these days, I'm going to get that right, Mr. Chair. But I wanted to dig in a little bit deeper about recommendations, what MPs and what the government can do to help keep these veteran organizations viable and surviving past this pandemic, because I think the services that you provide are going to be even more needed in our community. I know in Oshawa for sure. Mr. Gimlet, you suggested that perhaps if the programs were a little bit more flexible, you mentioned if the organization has a HST number, for example, perhaps some flexibility would allow organizations to get that necessary support to keep open over the winter months. Do you have any other, or do any of the witnesses have suggestions on what we could do to ensure that these organizations remain open? The more I hear about what you do, I realize it's so important and you really are so cost effective. I just wonder, if you close, what will Veterans Affairs do to basically pick up the slack that your organizations provide for our veterans? Do you have some good recommendations for us how we could help you make it through this second wave and hopefully last wave?
Well, we need help with operational funding. It's very obvious there that we all are very good at fundraising, and that because we've shown that pre-COVID, but now with COVID and we have no ability to go out or very limited abilities to fundraise. We need help just keeping the lights on, paying our bills, and that. Like I said before, we have never asked for help. We've always been the group helping, okay? And now, through no fault of ours, we're in a very tough situation, and we need help to get through the winter.
I would add a couple things. If either through the federal funding or more funds through downstream organizations that might focus on assisting small museums, helping us have better accessibility as our veterans use more walkers, wheelchairs, canes, have less walking ability, and help to maintain these heritage buildings safely and to have good walkways, have good lighting, a paved parking lot. So those are some of the things, frankly, if a lot of these grassroots organizations are gone, I don't think the federal government will be replacing us. The federal government right now can't meet the individual needs of somebody like our witness here, Max. So the money isn't filtering down to a grassroots level. And it's been challenging for us to access and do a New Horizons grant, that type of thing.
Well, thank you very much for that, because we are doing a study, or we just completed a study on the backlog. And we see so many veterans not being able to get their support, sometimes waiting years. And what really impresses me about your organizations and why I see you as being so vital is a veteran can walk in the door, immediately they see a familiar face, somebody who can relate to them, have conversations, like-minded thoughts and experiences, and just make them feel comforted in their community. So the challenges coming out of the pandemic, do you see yourself over the next couple months being able to bridge that area. I know that the program announced it was $20 million. The Legion has access to 14 million. And my understanding, Ms. Brimson and Mr. Gimlet, because your organizations aren't part of the Legion, you don't get that downstream, as Ms. Brimson mentioned. You have to come up with some other ideas. The program funding for the 6 million, my understanding, you found out about it last Wednesday. You had 4 days to make the application. Were you able to get your application in on time? Did you find out how the decision-making process was going to be? How long is it going to be before you get those decisions so you can make plans to make it through the winter months?
Mr. Carey, I'm sorry, but you're well over time here, but I will allow for a quick answer to at least one of those questions.
Thank you very much.
Like MP Carey said there, we found out last Wednesday we had to have the application in by Sunday. Just taking a very quick look at the funds, we didn't want to be greedy. And all that we applied for was help with our insurance.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Up next, we have MP Sampson. I may cut you a little short, sir, because we want to carve out some time for quick committee business.
Thank you, and I want to thank all presenters today. It's extremely important. Et puis, Monsieur Gaborio, j'apprécie énormément votre présentation.
I do appreciate your presentation. It was very important for us because it helped us understand your situation and also help us about the project. You mentioned going back to school for education. Was it in the training program that was given by veterans? No. It was based on medical retirement. Okay. It's part of the release process. Well, thank you very much, and thank you for having served. Mr. Booth?
Received $1.5 million last week, and a very important task that you and your organization do. Can you tell us very, very quickly, I know my time is running, what's the plan with that money in the next 3 months, right, short term, to make sure that you're continue to support your veterans?
Yes, certainly. So our plan over the next 3 months would be to make sure that we can continue to deliver our community programs to our partners and also to stabilize our organization so we can continue to represent and advocate for veterans as we've been doing throughout the crisis with the government. And to that point, I just want to answer Mr. Carey's point about recommendations. I think the other thing that I would strongly suggest the committee might note is the ongoing importance of the Wellbeing Fund. I mean, it's something that veterans organizations across Canada can apply for. They're distributing the balance of the $3.5 million of the VOESF, but ongoing as the government appropriates money each year. And I know there's always a jostle for budgets. I think the ongoing importance of the Wellbeing Fund to not only True Patriot Love, but to many veterans organizations is critical. So I would leave that as a plea.
I thank you very much for underlining the Wellbeing Fund, and I believe that fund will be open in the next few weeks before the end of the year, and that's going to be extremely important to continue to help other organizations on the ground. Thank you. Mr. Chair,
is that all you?
I had more, but you told me I had 2 or 3 minutes. I think.
I'll cut you off. Don't worry. Okay. You got about another minute or so.
Okay, well then, Mrs. Brimson, thank you for your testimony, and I really appreciate how you were able to share with the committee that, even before the pandemic, there was challenges. The pandemic may have helped your organization, many organizations, at looking at other ways to do business to support your organization, your community. I look at that as being a very positive way of supporting. So can you tell me 1 or 2 things you're going to do differently, maybe that you didn't do before?
Yes, we're going to emphasize try to get more relationships as a small museum. And between some volunteer students, university, even if we have to pay a small amount, it's worth getting a good archivist and some assistance with our indexing.
Excellent. Were you able to have any Canada student program for students this year for the museum?
Not through that, but we did it through Pillar Nonprofit Group. We had 2 volunteers pre-COVID helping us with cataloging.
Excellent. I will cut you off now, sir, if that's okay. I appreciate it. Folks, thank you so much for helping us with this study and taking some time out of your busy schedules to answer our questions. I will ask the witnesses to vacate the meeting shortly here, and I want to indulge, if the committee will indulge me. I just have one committee business item to go over, so if all the MPs could stay on. But again, thank you so much, and I thank you all for the work that you're doing on the ground, both as in your organizations and as volunteers. It really does make a lot of difference to the veterans that you serve. Thank you.
Thank you for your time today.
Thank you. Bye for now.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Excellent. So as they're leaving here, guys, I'll explain. We didn't have any business scheduled for today, but something's come up, obviously. Monday is the fall economic statement scheduled for 4 o'clock. It is completely up to us if we wish to have a meeting at that time, opposed to attending the fall economic statement. I wanted to make this a committee decision, not a chair decision. The options, or I should say the content of Monday. Currently, we have 3 witnesses scheduled for the study that we are doing currently. I have conferred with the clerk. We do have runway on either the 7th or, Madam Clerk, was it the 11th?
December 7th or 9th.
December 7th or?
Yeah, or the Wednesday, which is December the 9th.
Or the Wednesday on December the 9th, that we could move this to. I am concerned about Wednesday's meeting more than I am about Monday's, in that is the day that we're going to be reviewing the report on the backlog, which of course is the #1 priority of this committee, to get that in before we rise for the Christmas break. I'm being told that it is a fairly short report. It's about 27 pages. And what we are planning to do is extend Wednesday to 3 hours, which would give us hopefully more than enough time to finish and approve the study on Wednesday. We're going to need to really buckle down and do that in order for me to have the runway to be able to table it the following week, which is the last sitting week of the House. So there's really 2 questions I'm asking there. One, are we going to move Monday's meeting to the 7th, which was currently open? And 2, do I have approval to extend the meeting to 3 hours? Obviously we'll build in some bio breaks if needed, but I do think the will of this committee is to get this study done and wrapped up before we rise for the holiday. Any thoughts?
Well, if I can go, Mr. Chair, I expect that, first of all, I don't know who's in Ottawa as part of the committee for the economic update. I expect that the expectation of the parties will be that all members are in the House for the update. I suspect it's going to be tabled in the House. So it might be
4 o'clock on Monday.
Right. So it might be best that we postpone the meeting on Monday. I know that one of our members is dealing with a pre-scheduled health issue on Monday as well. So I would ask for some consideration with that, and maybe move it to Wednesday, and then do the 3 hours, and then reschedule again for that other time. That's what I think. Well, not what I think. What I know my position would be on this. Thank you.
Monsieur Desilets, do you have any thoughts on the matter?
Moi, ça me va, Monsieur le Président.
I'm fine, Mr. Chair. I can certainly deal with a 3-hour meeting. That's fine with me.
MP Blaney?
I'm fine with a 3-hour meeting. I think it makes sense to not have our committee meeting happen at the same time as the financial update. I know people are interested and want to engage in that process.
Okay.
And very happy to have us have a meeting on the 6th or the 9th. Just let us know and we'll do our best to accommodate.
Okay. Anyone from the Liberal side? I got a thumbs up. Excellent.
Yeah,
all right,
we're all
folks. That's great. I appreciate the cooperation there. We'll make this happen next week. And if there's no objection, I will move to adjourn the meeting. Thank you very much, everybody. Take care.